If you haven't taken the NASM Non-Proctored Exam, but you want to know what it's like, this video is for you. And if you're just joining me, I'm Coach Joe Drake, founder of the Axiom Fitness Academy. We are NASM's #1 licensed partner academy. We have hundreds of students go through our programs just like you and pass the certification every year. So I'm going to tell you not only why you need to take the non-proctored exam, why it's a good idea for you, but I'm actually going to go through and take some questions with you. So you get into the thought process of how to go about succeeding with the exam and how to use this thing as you move forward. So we've done some other videos differentiating what is the non-proctored versus the proctored exam. So if you're looking for those questions, check those out. But in this video, you can see we're gonna go behind the scenes style. I'm literally gonna go through some of the non-proctored exam with you, not only so you get a sense of how do I use this thing, but also how do I go about taking the questions. And stick with me, because when we're done, I'm gonna give you guys my top 3 ways to make the most out of the non-proctored exam. Let's jump in. So you guys can see here on the screen where we are inside the NASM platform, and sometimes we got questions on, Joe, how do I find it? How do I get to it? If for some reason it doesn't show up on your account, you guys can reach out directly to NASM. They will add this for you for no cost at all. But when it comes to taking the actual exam, or really any of your exams, go to learning and then click on exams, and boom, you're gonna see it pop up. So right here you can see I only have the academic non-proctored exam on here, and this is gonna be open book for you guys. You can see we got 100 multiple choice questions. You do have 3 hours to take this. It's gonna be a little bit longer than your proctored exam. All right, and you've got 3 chances to pass. But I know if you watch this video, you're gonna pass in the first try. All right, so here we are. We are inside of the non-proctored exam, and you might be thinking, Joe, this kind of looks like the practice exam. And you're right, it does. And the idea behind this visual that you guys see is to get you prepared for the real certification. This is gonna be pretty similar to what you find when you take the proctored version. You're gonna see the number of questions and where you are on the left side. You're gonna have just 1 question on the screen. The one difference you'll find, guys, as we go through and take these, when you take the real exam, you can flag questions and come back to them. In this one, you can just go one by one. You can go back and forth, but let's jump into our first question here. Which muscle concentrically accelerates shoulder extension? Oh, I like this. We're going right into understanding movements, anatomy. So we oftentimes get questions, Joe, where's anatomy gonna come up? There's not gonna be pictures, but there's gonna be application questions like this. And in your mind, when you see this stuff, especially while you're practicing, guys, move your body a little bit to understand. So which muscle concentrically, which we're thinking muscle shortening, accelerates shoulder extension? Wait a minute, what's shoulder? So we got shoulder flexion, shoulder extension. Okay, so we know it's bringing the arm down. Let's take a look at the answers. Option A, pectoralis major, B, upper traps, C, anterior deltoid, and D, latissimus dorsi. Now guys, this is a really good example of multiple choice question taking strategy. Oftentimes there's gonna be a couple answers. They could either be distractors or they might lead you to the right answer. So if we think about pectoralis major on the front side of the body, right, gonna be involved, we think about chest flies, also slightly involved in shoulder flexion based on the position of our arm. Upper traps, not so much in shoulder extension. And then anterior deltoid, definitely involved in shoulder flexion. So we can see 3 of those muscles are more related to shoulder flexion, even if you didn't know that the lats extend the shoulder concentrically. Boom, answer here is gonna be D, latissimus dorsi. All right, here we are, question 2. And you can see as you go through this, you're not gonna know right away which questions are right or wrong, but I can tell you, if you had a good feeling about the answer, that last one, latissimus dorsi, just go with it. Don't go back and change it. Probably one of the worst test taking strategies you could do to change the answers as you go back. But number 2 here, what is cardiac output, right? One thing you gotta try to do as you're taking the exam or this non-proctored exam is to be able to go back to these categories of information in your mind. So you're thinking cardiac output, okay, cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory system, or the cardiorespiratory training chapters, right? That's the information we're trying to pull from here. We've got options A, B, C, and D. All right, as I'm going through this, you guys be thinking about what answer you think is correct as well. A, the amount of blood in the ventricle before contraction. B, the amount of blood remaining in the ventricle after contraction. C, the volume of blood pumped by the heart per minute. And D, the volume of blood pumped by the heart per beat or contraction. So again, you're like, man, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of pumping, there's very similar answers. And so you just gotta think, what is cardiac output? If you can go back to your brain in the material, the equation for cardiac output is Q equals HR times SV. So cardiac output is a product of the heart rate, how many times in a minute our heart beats, times the stroke volume, which is how much blood we're actually pumping out. So if we go back through our answers here, the amount of blood in the ventricle before contraction, nope, that's not gonna be it. B, the amount of blood remaining in the ventricle after contraction, no, not gonna be it either, right? That's the blood left over. C, the volume of blood pumped by the heart per minute, sounds pretty good. And then D, the volume of blood pumped by the heart per beat or per contraction. So D would actually be stroke volume, not cardiac output. So we're gonna go with the answer C, and hopefully if you're thinking and you're going along with me, you were right as well. The volume of blood pumped by the heart per minute would be cardiac output. Ooh, another muscle one, right? These are the ones that trip people up. So think in your brain, which muscle concentrically accelerate hip flexion? Pretty much they're asking which ones cause hip flexion. So if you think in your mind, okay, I'm standing, I bring my knee up closer to my torso, that will be hip flexion. So hopefully that makes you think about the muscles involved. Now let's look at the answers. And it is giving us muscles here. So A, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and vastus intermedius. And so you in your brain, you're thinking, what do the vastus muscles do? B, glute max, glute medius, and glute minimus. All right, so all glute muscles, are they involved in hip flexion or maybe hip extension? Trying to trick you there, right? C, psoas, TFL, and rectus femoris. You're like, okay, the TFL I'm not sure about, but the psoas and the rectus femoris, I'm thinking those are hip flexors, right? They're one of the quads that crosses over and flexes the hip. And then D, piriformis, QL, and multifidus. All right, I'll give you guys a second to think about this one, but which muscles concentrically accelerate hip flexion? Pretty much which ones cause it. Answer here, even if you didn't know the TFL, that could be a tricky one, is going to be C. Your psoas is one of your primary hip flexors, and so is your rectus femoris, or your rectus femoris, however you want to say it. All right, here we go. We've got a little longer one. Don't get overwhelmed by the longer explanation. Sometimes that can be tricky. But the question is, which statement accurately describes sagittal plane joint motions? All right, so again, in your brain, before you even look at the answers, you're thinking, okay, sagittal plane, I'm stuck in that little hallway that goes front to back. So that's a good strategy for you guys. Just make sure you understand the question. And if you understand the question, try to go to that place in your brain, sagittal plane. All right, so A, sagittal plane joint motions predominantly involve flexion and extension movements, such as hip and shoulder flexion and extension. Okay, all right, well, we only read one so far, but it sounds okay. B, sagittal plane joint motions predominantly involve internal and external rotation. And guys, you can almost stop right there, right? Sagittal plane, we don't necessarily talk about internal and external rotation. That should make you go right into your brain to the transverse plane, such as hip and shoulder internal external rotation. So as you're going through, it's not gonna be B, right? It's not gonna be B. C, sagittal plane joint motions predominantly involve horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction movements, such as hip and shoulder horizontal abduction and adduction. All right, well, with the shoulder, we do talk about horizontal adduction, but it's not the sagittal plane, right? Even horizontal for the shoulder is gonna go back to that transverse plane. So we know it's not C. All right, right now it's A, it's not B or C. Let's check out D. Sagittal plane joint motions predominantly involve abduction and adduction movements. You don't need to read any further, guys. Abduction, adduction is gonna happen in the frontal plane. So again, these are longer answers, so take your time and go through them, but hopefully if you thought initially A was right, go with that one. It's A. During the squat exercise, I like it, we're already thinking practical, right? You're like, wait a minute, Joe, I didn't learn about the squat. You got to apply, right? Application-based questions. So in your brain, you're going to the squat exercise. The lifting phase out of a squatted position will be described as what type of muscle action? So in your brain, because you won't be able to do this on the proctored exam, you can on the non-proctored, is if I was at the bottom of my squat and I'm coming up out of that, what would it be described as? What type of muscle action? Isometric? No, there's no movement with isometric, right? We're contracted, but we're not moving. Eccentric? That would be lengthening. That's going to be more the lowering phase. Isokinetic? Isokinetic, no, not so much. That's gonna be fixed speed of movement. You don't find that with most movements in the gym. D, concentric. You got it, it's D, concentric. Next question we got here. When a person is ambivalent, all right, ambivalent, you can kind of go to chapters 3 and 4 in your head in the NASM material, behavior change. When a person is ambivalent about changing, what stage of change are they likely in, all right? Common, you're gonna definitely get trans-theoretical model questions when you guys get to the exam. You really want to understand these different phases. So let's go real quick here. They're ambivalent about changing, which kind of means they have mixed emotions about doing it. Action, probably not action, because if they had mixed emotions, they might not be doing it, right, for that first 6 months. So I'm gonna say it's probably not A. B, maintenance, for similar reasons as A, probably not A or B, because B would be like they're maintaining it. They've been doing it for more than 6 months. Probably less likely to have mixed feelings about it. So we could probably narrow it down to C and to D, pre-contemplation and contemplation. And in this one, you guys tell me what you think. Feel free to throw it in the comments as we're waiting right now. Suspense, I'm gonna say D, contemplation, right? It means they're thinking about it, right? They might not be making all the plans yet, but they're kind of weighing the benefits, right? What's gonna be good about doing it? What's gonna be the sacrifice to doing it? And that's really a good example of ambivalence, of kind of like being stuck in between, wanting to do something, but being motivated not to. So here, I'm gonna say answer would be D, contemplation. And we've got one that's more specific. I'm gonna tell you right now, as you're reading this one on the screen, this is going to test your knowledge of the OPT model. This is a really great example of the variables you need to know. Which exercise scheme is most appropriate for achieving muscular endurance adaptations, right? So we're thinking OPT model, stabilization, muscular endurance. Option A, 2 to 4 sets, 10 to 15 reps with a fast tempo. Okay, there's our first option. B, 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 repetitions with a slower tempo. C, 4 to 6 sets, 1 to 5 reps with an explosive tempo. And then D, 1 to 2 sets, 5 to 10 reps with a fast tempo. So as you guys look at this, should become pretty obvious for you based, even if anything, just based upon the repetition scheme, right? If you go back to the OPT model in your head, both stabilization and muscular endurance are suggested at similar rep ranges, 12 to 20, 1 to 3 sets, and generally a slower or a more controlled tempo. So the fast tempo and the explosive tempo and the other answers should have been a giveaway that those are not the answer in this one. Hope you selected B. It is B, 1 to 3 sets. 12 to 20 reps with the slower tempo. This next question is somewhat of an application one, and it's also a good example of why you should review the example exercises that are included in some of the chapters, especially in section 5 material, because those are the only exercises that they're going to use when they're giving you these questions. So this question says, which exercise is a total body power focused movement? So we know it's power, explosive, but we also want that involves a lot of muscle mass. So option A, 2-arm push press. Okay, maybe. B, front medicine ball oblique throw. Front medicine ball oblique throw. Okay, I'm thinking there. All right. Medicine ball chest pass and soccer throw. So here's the deal. They're giving you all power movements. They're giving you all power movements. So soccer throw, medicine ball chest pass, front medicine ball oblique throw. These are all ones, if you go back to your brain, you're going to find them in the core chapter. They are power exercises, but more for the core. So arguably they do involve a fair amount of muscle mass, but if you think about a 2-arm push press, you're gonna be using a lot more of the legs and the upper body. So out of these answers, the most appropriate one would be A, 2-arm push press. All right, this question includes the dreaded words underactive. All right, great example of the underactive, overactive stuff people struggle with on the exam. Let's dive into this one. Which muscle would be considered underactive, leading to excessive forward trunk lean during the overhead squat assessment? So again, you kind of see me being weirdo here, acting it out. You got to at least be able to visualize in your head, okay, excessive forward lean, what does that look like? Because then in your mind, even if you don't know, you can start to problem solve what could be making me fall forward. Underactive, what's not firing enough, what's not strong enough, that's what you got to keep in your mind. Okay, option A, hip flexor complex. Okay, thinking about that. Option B, gluteus maximus. Option C, gastroc and soleus. Option D, rectus abdominis. Okay, so this one can be kind of confusing if you, in your mind, confuse overactive and underactive, because 3 of these, I'll tell you right now, this might help you narrow it down, 3 of these could be overactive, and that could be leading to the body falling forward, right? That excessive forward trunk lean. So if we work from the hip flexor complex, if those are overactive, they could be pulling us forward, all right? Same thing with the rectus abdominis, right? The abdominal complex hip flexors. If those were overactive, they could be pulling us forward. So we know it can't be hip flexors. It can't be rectus abdominis, because those are likely to be the overactive ones. Now we break it down to glutes and then gastroc and soleus. And if you guys have watched any of our content on the overhead squat, which I know you have, then extremely tight calves, overactive gastroc and soleus can be a big reason why people come forward. So we know it's also not gastroc and soleus. Only thing left here, glutes, right? Glutes, posterior chain could be underactive, right? Maybe we need to strengthen that to keep us in a better position for the torso. So answer here would definitely be B, gluteus maximus. This question is going to be a great one that gets us in the mindset of scope of practice, which you'll see a decent amount about. So just take your time, read it, think common sense here. A client reports that he is following a limited diet of chicken and rice every day to avoid eating extra calories from other foods in order to lose weight, all right? What would be the most appropriate response for a personal trainer to stay within their scope of practice? So we're thinking, what's the most reasonable thing that should come out of your mouth? That's the answer we're looking for. A, the chicken and rice combination seems adequate to provide caloric, macronutrient, and macronutrient needs. B, the diet seems simple enough to maintain for a period of time and facilitate adherence to the diet plan. C, the limited diet sounds like a good plan to limit extra calories from other foods to facilitate weight loss. D, a varied diet of whole foods provides important micronutrients, and this limited diet may be lacking adequate amounts of them. So as you read through all of those answers, none of them are outlandish. None of the responses are unreasonable, but D is probably the safest, best answer, especially if you think about our role of educating clients. So in this one, the answer would be D, a varied diet of whole foods provides important micronutrients. And hopefully this has been helpful for you guys, just to not only take away some of the stress of like, okay, how do I go through and approach the exam, but also give you guys just a direct look into the non-proctored exam. So if you found that to be helpful to go through some questions like this together with a non-proctored exam, make sure and leave me a comment. Let me know that this stuff is valuable for you. And now what I want to do is I want to convince you guys why you need to do this, give you my top 3 ways to make this non-proctored exam beneficial for you. Number 1 way to make this beneficial for you as you're going through all this stuff and you're stressed out about the exam is to use the non-proctored exam as a confidence builder. The first time that you take it, I'm gonna give you the same advice that we give our students inside the academy, is take it like a real exam. Take it with no notes, no help. It's gonna be a good indication of if you know the material, and hey, guess what? If and when you pass it, it's a huge boost in confidence to let you know, hey, I'm ready now to go take the proctored exam. The second reason that you want to make sure you take the non-proctored exam is because it's a great study tool, kind of like the practice exams, to help you uncover what you just still don't know. As you go through these questions, you're going to see them written in a different way. The reality is when NASM made this exam, they didn't have to stick to the same standards of the proctored certification, and so they just asked the questions a little simpler. And so for you, as you go through it, if you're still confused about certain things, or you're like, Joe, there were concepts on there I don't even remember, that's good to take note of. Take note of those things. Screenshot those things with your phone. Go back through it, whatever you need to do to make sure you uncover what you still don't know for the proctored exam. Number 3, and maybe my favorite reason why you should take the non-proctored certification, is it could be a great way for you to start to get experience. And hear me out on this. A lot of people have mixed feelings and emotions about what the non-proctored certification means in relationship to the proctored. We still want you to go on and get the proctored, the accredited certification. But in the meantime, I know experience will trump everything else. And there are a lot of gyms, especially here in the US, that are willing to hire someone with the non-proctored certificate. So don't be afraid to use this to get your foot in the door. Some of you guys, I already know, you have exam anxiety. Maybe you self-identify as being a bad test taker. Well, as you get further along in the content, take this non-proctored certificate. take it into a gym and start to get some experience, because I know that's gonna accelerate you more than anything else. And if you're still with me, your homework assignment moving forward is go take the non-proctored certificate. There's literally no downside. It's only a great resource to help move you forward, to help you get experience. And if you're struggling to figure out what to do, or you're struggling with the material, just know you can reach out directly to myself and the team at the Academy. We do offer free advisor calls to help you strategize where you are and maybe what steps to take next. You can find that link in the description below. I hope to talk to you soon.